Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Total War Warhammer online commentary. In this particular battle, I'm going to be playing the Dwarves, and I'm going to be facing off against the Wood Elves. So this game actually took place in my stream. I believe it was my second stream, and it was a really fun match. A lot of you guys in chat asked that I do a cast just for this game so that everybody else on the channel could see it. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. So on this particular map, this is actually one of my least favorite maps to play Dwarves versus Wood Elves, simply because there's so much terrain. So if you guys see over here, the Wood Elves definitely have a nice hiding position. I have absolutely no idea where they are, and something that you see a lot in this particular matchup on this map is them hiding a Waystalker on this side and a Waystalker on this side, and just using the arrows of Kurnus every chance they get. Because again, it is an unlimited resource. It does have a cooldown, however, with having them kind of staggered all over the woods, they can get massive value out of that. And the arrows of Kurnus is really good at taking down elite infantry like Norgrumbling's Ironbreakers, the Grumbling Guard, and things like that. So definitely a very, very tough matchup here on this particular map. Now, if it's an open field match, you can see where the elves are. You have your cannon, you have your grudge thrower. You can definitely put the hurt on them. But when there's kind of this type of terrain, they definitely have a pretty good chance. So let's get right into the army compositions, and hopefully you guys enjoy this one. In my opinion, definitely one of the more epic games I've had on my channel, so stay tuned. So I do have the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, great choice. Have a bit of an anti-infantry bonus. They have flame attacks, which makes them decent against trees. Very, very solid choice against the Wood Elves. On top of that, I do have the Ironbreakers here, who are just absolute gangsters, and 7,200 HP. Wow, that's pretty incredible. So I guess, yeah, look at the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass at 4,800, so quite a bit more. These guys have amazing defensive stats with 83 melee defense, and their satchel charges are actually really good at tearing up the kind of lightly armored Wood Elf infantry. So on top of that, Grumbling Guard, again, they're okay against trees. They got their big axes, can definitely do some chopping, but more importantly, they are here for this aura. So for those of you that haven't seen it, it's the Old Grumblers. It provides a 30% vigor buff, which is really, really nice. So on top of that, I do have some Quarrelers to just kind of trade with Wood Elf missiles, and I also decided to bring Ulthar's Raiders in case he decided to bring Durthu. I would be able to mark him and also get that armor-piercing ranged attack. Some Dwarf Warriors in the back, 2 Runesmiths, and then I do have High King Thorgrim with the Great Book of Grudges and all those other goodies. So lastly, I do have the Godlobber, which is great against Wood Elf archers and infantry, and a cannon to deal with big threats. So you also notice that the cannon does have quite a few chevrons simply to deal with big baddies. So my opponent has Waystalker hidden over here. He has one hidden over here. So again, a lot of that crossfire going to be going on. He does have the Wild Riders, so a lot of angles for him to come in and get some nice flanking maneuvers on me. So we'll see how he does in that respect. He also does have some more Wild Riders over here. Then he has a whole back line of Eternal Guards with shields, so pretty decent cost-effective choice against the Dwarves. And with the Lore of Life, they can actually last quite a long time in that kind of sustained combat. But he does have, let's see, a Spellsinger with the Lore of Life, and he does have, it looks like, let's go ahead and zoom in here. I believe he does have Regrowth, and yes, so he has Regrowth, and he also has Earthbloom. So he does not have the Awakening of the Wood or any kind of other modality aside from Earthblood to kind of spam that, what is that, the Life Bloom, I believe, the one that heals your entire army for quite a bit of HP. And he does have Big Papa Durthu, who has it looks like he has Flock of Doom, he has the Sword of Death, and some other goodies. So he's definitely looking scary in his natural habitat here. So that's pretty much it for both of our armies. So let's get right into the business, guys. So of course my opponent, he's probably going to open up with a nice arrow of Kurnus. So you can see one comes in here, slams into these Dwarf Warriors. I think he meant to click on the Quarrelers, but he just missed. But still, look at the damage that does. And again, this is an infinite resource, and look how many of the Dwarves it kills. It's pretty devastating, actually. So right now, I have absolutely no idea where he is. I just, saw an arrow of Kurnus come from over here, and I have made the mistake as the Dwarves before of trying to, send Slayers or other units to go, take out those Waystalkers. You can see another one right here slamming into the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. So very, very tough situation. This is definitely very frustrating, on this map, but something that you have to learn to deal with. So right now, I just start to advance into the forest, and I decided to leave some Slayers, some Dwarf Warriors, and a second group of Dwarf Warriors to just kind of guard my cannons and try and find out where my opponent was. But still, the Arrow of Kurnus, let's go ahead and take a look actually at how short the cooldown is. So we're going to go over here, zoom on this bad boy here, and you can see he's pretty well hidden in this tree right here. So we're going to look. It's actually a 90-second cooldown, so really not that long in kind of the scope of the Total War Warhammer multiplayer battle. So he's also taking some pot shots, so he's got a little bit of a firing angle and maybe should be able to rack up some kills, but it looks like he is indeed hitting the tree. So I was able to get a little bit of sight here, and you can see my Godlobber coming in here and is also, able to get over the trees and actually do a little bit of damage on these guys. So hopefully it'll make some contact, and there it does. So great stuff. Decent start, but he has quite a few chevrons in these guys, so they're going to be pretty resilient. And Elvish units have very high leadership. You can see they took a hit. They're still at 63, and the other ones are actually at 90. So the Godlobber does have a leadership debuff, so that's why it tanked so quickly there in the beginning. But regardless, I do advance into the forest. I just wanted to engage as quickly as possible. But something that's very tough is he has those Wild Riders over there, and then he has this group in the back, and also a Waystalker. So it's going to be, I do allocate a lot of resources to defending my artillery, but still, I'm going to have to, be very careful. And, again, he does have Durthu, and he gets that huge Flock of Doom. And one of the things about the Wood Elves in this particular style of play that they're doing is if you split your army wide, they're going to kind of pick you apart with cab charges, so you need to stay high and tight. But on that same coin, if you bunch up, you are going to take quite a bit of Flock of Doom action. But he does come in with Wild Riders here and does get a Rune of Wrath and Rune, which is very, pretty good trade for me. It does about 10 to 15% of their HP damage, and I'm able to kind of force those guys off. So he started to advance his main army out in the open, and I immediately realized I did not want to be in this forest anymore. He did have, his Waystalker shooting in at me, and these troops were going to start threatening my artillery, which was very tough. So he does get some Wild Riders over here, so they're going to charge in here a little bit, but you can see the cannons are turning right now, and they're going to, hopefully be able to apply a little bit of pressure here, but the Dwarf Warriors are ready to intercept. They're not braced for the charge, which is unfortunate, but again, I was just trying to get them to plug in as quickly as possible. So he charges in, he pulls out, very well played on my opponent, inflicting quite a bit of HP damage here, and, not really taking any punishment in return, but the cannon is going to be turning and shooting at them, and you can also see the Goblobbers here are turning and shooting in at his Eternal Guards and his other units here. But again, Big Papa Dirthu just continuing to use that Flock of Doom, generating some great results. But thankfully my cannons are shooting in now and are doing a little bit of damage, nothing substantial yet, but they do take out a model there. But that Waystalker is continuing to shoot from here, and the other one of course is hidden back here. Very, very tricky spot. And he does have more Wild Riders coming around the flank, so just pressure from all angles. And he's forming his ranks here. He does have 3 of these Glade Guards. They don't have the armor piercing, obviously, but they don't also have the magic, so he's not going to have the mitigation of the Dwarves' 25% magic resistance. So my Coilers are opening up here, doing a little bit of pressure. You can see the Goblobber getting in there as well, and I just decided to advance and try and take out his Infantry Corps before I took too much skirmish damage, because you can see with the Flock of Dooms and all that kind of missile harass from Arrows of Kurnus, I had taken a lot. My opponent definitely keen on that, so he decides to just retreat and continue his harass. So he gets a cycle charge in here, but he does take some casualties. My cannon is continuing to pressure this group, and hopefully it'll come out here and I'll be able to get some shots, but he does kind of draw me away with the Slayers and has this big opening here, but you can see the cannons shooting in here, taking out 4 models right away, and the Slayers immediately scurry back to defend their cannons, because again, this is one of the only tools I have, aside from Coilers, to dealing any range damage, so very, very tough stuff here. But he is going to come in here. It looks like he decides to retreat, just kind of circling around, and then that other group in the back is coming also. But these trades most certainly aren't for free. These Wild Riders have taken a bit of HP damage, and so is this group, and now some of my Coilers are turning and firing and doing a pretty good job of pressuring. This cannon back here just does massive HP damage to these Wild Riders. Looks like they're going to commit to this, relatively speaking, so they're coming in pretty hot here. Thankfully, I am braced, so it shouldn't be as bad as before. At least this one group is braced, and they're going to get in and do some decent work. You can see the Dwarf Force, they didn't really look ready. They didn't have like their shields up or anything, but they get a charge in here, and these Wood Elf Cav are just going to run into these guys. But I had a pretty good defensive line, so hopefully they'll be able to take the brunt of that charge, and I did get a decent cannon exchange there, so that was not bad at all. So my Slayers continuing to kind of defend this side against the threats over there. And meanwhile, in the front line, very tough situation. So his missiles here are just peppering these guys, and it's a very bad situation. My Grumbling Guard are taking a beating. Thankfully, due to the high Dwarven leadership, they're still steady, but this is a bad situation. Though my Goblobber is trading somewhat well with his infantry, he's still getting, substantially better of this trade. And you can see just the constant harass, the Arrows of Kurnus focusing my Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, and my Grumbling Guard are also not in the best shape either. Let's go ahead and take a look. Yeah, the Grumbling Guard, and you can see another Arrow of Kurnus coming in from the flank over there. And another Flock of Doom. So just so much harass going on. It's just extremely brutal. He's really taking advantage of his terrain quite well, but the Dwarves are not going to give up. I do have a group of Ulthar's Raiders here who are in pretty good shape and continuing to put some good pressure with the Goblobber, and these guys are wavering, so that was a big victory for me, aside from all of these kind of travesties that are going on. But unfortunately, he does get these Wild Riders over here, and they are able to kind of circumvent my flank. And my Coilers back here were left alone, so this is tough. So he's probably going to charge in here and do some pretty decent work. As you guys can see, they're coming in here, and what looks like I was trying to get a Rune of Wrath and Rune off on them or something, or marked by Ulthar. So I do mark them. I turn my Rangers around, and the Rangers are going to throw their axes in and hopefully be able to do some decent HP damage. So they throw in and actually take out 6 or 7 models. They do have that missile debuff, and on top of that, they also do have an armor hit, which is pretty good. And also you can see the cannons coming in and shooting, so not a bad trade there after all is said and done. The Rangers did a pretty good job of surprising him with their stock, and I was definitely very happy with that. So in the back line, you can see this Waystalker is almost out of ammunition. I did send some Slayers to kind of hunt him down, because I felt like, with his Cav having taken that damage there, I was able to kind of allocate my resources elsewhere. So, pretty good situation in that respect. But in the front line, he just completely ran back into the forest here, just hiding. And again, this terrain is very tough because I can't really do much with my Goblobber. It's shooting into the trees, but a lot of the damage is being mitigated by the terrain. So I do have some Coilers online and also Ulthar's Raiders who are able to apply some, light pressure fire on this Waystalker here. And you can also see these darn Wild Riders just coming out of the forest. I couldn't see them until the last second. And they do get an engagement on the Slayers, but the Slayers here are pretty pissed off. They're leaping, they're doing some good stuff, and this isn't a bad situation for them. That attack animation is so freaking cool. Slayers have some of the coolest ones, especially with those jump kicks and stuff. So they will tear Wild Riders to pieces. They have an anti-large bonus. They hit very hard against lightly armored targets, and Wild Riders are, you know, pretty lightly armored. You can see Rudolph and his elf there going down, taking a bit of a beating from the Slayers. So we're able to chase them back into the forest. You can see this guy with a very heroic jump kick right there. So Wild Riders retreating down to 32 models, and the other group was pretty much routed off the battlefield, but this Waystalker actually engages in melee. It appeared my opponent was very desperate to kind of get in there and shut down the cannon, but this is not a great trade for my opponent. He only has 40 armor, so you know the non-armor piercing damage of these Dwarf Warriors will do pretty good at kind of keeping him in check. So, but as far as my main army goes, you guys can take a look. The Ironbreakers are in horrible shape. Horrible. They're at 32 HP. The Grumbling Guard literally have 3 models left, but they're still steady. Just the true testament to the Dawi resilience. And my Warriors of Dragonfire Pass are in horrible shape. So as far as just like an infantry corps, I have a few groups of like tattered Dwarf Warriors. I have Thorgrim, some more tattered Dwarf Warriors, and some Slayers. But you can see he's starting to take some losses with these Wild Riders. The Rune of Wrath and Ruin doing a pretty good job of focusing them down, and he does charge into some brace with Dawi, and also the Slayers are able to get a bit of a wrap here, and these guys are going to take a beating as they retreat. The Slayers definitely thriving in this, you know, particular situation, and are starting to do a pretty good job here. So you can see some of the Rangers also getting some axes in there for Harambe, doing a pretty good job, and they are now wavering. So now that I'm able to deal with a lot of that mobile harass, I'm able to kind of stabilize, but still, guys, my Goblobber's out of ammunition. This is a really bad situation, and another group of Wild Riders does come back from route and gets a great charge on some of my Dwarfs in here. So very, very tough. My opponent really on top of just keeping that perpetual harass on me, and, you know, taking advantage of the terrain and doing a great job. And he also does use the Flock of Doom. He's able to hit some of my Rangers here, and also he gets a great little concave here. So for any of you guys that have played RTSs, a concave is when you have like a circular firing pattern and you're able to focus down on an isolated group. So the Rangers, not like Coilers, they aren't armored, they aren't shielded, so they're going to take a beating from missile fire. So I immediately have to pull them back, you know, because again, they're one of my few units that I have left. And just a disclaimer, guys, at this point in the battle, I haven't even seen his Lord. I don't know who he's using, and finally Big Papa Dirthu does come out of the forest. And this just looks like a mass rout, to be honest, right now. I mean, they're not actually routing. I decided to pull back and try and hold up in the forest over here, now that my opponent, you know, had this really advantageous missile situation. So this was very, very tough here. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit. Mostly it's a tactical retreat here, keeping some of my units to defend and kind of deal with his skirmishers. But, you know, again, finally some of his troops came out of the forest here, and, you know, this is going to be a pretty heated battle. So the Slayers, I just decided to run them in, because Slayers hit really hard against these troops. And if any of you guys have seen the Dwarf builds where Slayers, you just mass them against Wood Elves, they can do a pretty darn good job at just cutting through, you know, all sorts of Wood Elf units, including the trees. So the Slayers get in here, they're going to do a pretty good job, and, you know, hopefully they'll be able to do their king proud. So also a Rune of Wrath and Ruin goes down, and you can just see the beating this small group of Slayers are doing. And then High King Thorgrim comes in here. The King is definitely pissed off. He's going to lay a smackdown on some of these woodland sprites, definitely exacting some vengeance for all this miserable harassment. You can see a nice scenic goblin shot coming over, doing a pretty good job here. And High King Thorgrim, he throws that beard up, and he comes right down with that pimp slapping. And just look at the damage he does to this Wood Elf line, just absolutely massive. So pretty great situation in that respect. The Slayers here are backing him up, and they didn't take too many losses, and we were able to just absolutely crush those Eternal Guard here. Over here, the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass and some of my other units are doing a pretty good job in this engagement, but a huge Flock of Doom going down, and also these darn Wild Riders keep coming back, and I didn't even have any ammunition left on either of my cannons, so it really wasn't that big of a deal. But still, you know, a loss is a loss. You know, all Dawi lives matter, and definitely a tough situation here. My Quarlers have been routed off. I do have some Rangers, I believe, somewhere back here. I'm not sure where they went. They might have engaged here in the fight. I think they're somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. We'll get back to them later. But anyways, my cannons have been completely shut down, but his missiles are starting to run out of ammunition. A very atrocious fight, but my Dwarf Warriors are steady. They're taking fire in the back. Very tough, but the one thing that's really going for me, guys, I have 2 full health Runesmiths, and I have High King Thorgrim in great shape, and I decided to bring Elite Infantry this game in the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass and the Ironbreakers, although I don't even know if I have any Ironbreakers left. I honestly think they got completely melted, so very tough stuff. And Dirthu over here is coming to engage. He was being very conservative with Dirthu. Dirthu did take a ton of cannon fire earlier, and you can see I did have that gold cannon shooting at him for a good minute, and was able to do about 40% of his HP. And also his Winds of Magic are pretty much completely gone. The Spellsinger with the Lore of Life was, healing a little bit, but the Flock of Doom spam was pretty real, and, again, he used most of his resources on overcasting that. So here, these Eternal Guards are shaken. They're all running for the hills. So I was able to actually win this kind of heated battle here. You can see High King Thorgrim and the boys are doing a pretty good job, and it doesn't look like I have much, but Runesmiths are pretty solid combatants, and they hit very hard. And, High King Thorgrim also has 135 armor, so the non-armor piercing variant of these missiles, he has 135 when buffed right now, 120 base. So the missiles right here aren't going to do a whole lot to him or the Runesmiths. They did a pretty good job of focusing down my Dwarfs just with pure density, but still, my little Dwarf posse here is putting up a great fight. And you can see some of my Rangers, they are hidden over here, they're shaken, but that focus fire is going to be pretty nice against Big Papa Dirthu if I'm able to kind of come back here. And, as it stands right now, I have 84 troops to his 225, so you know, again, the ratio of kind of losses is pretty bad, but he does have a lot of kind of cheap fodder units. I guess Eternal Guards are very good fodder units, but still, they're fodder nonetheless. And once his missiles run out, these guys won't be able to do pretty much anything to any of my heroic units. So what's left of my Dawi forces decide to kind of retreat and go after Durthu and just pressure these heroic units back here. And you can see I do get marked by Ulthar, but he does run with Durthu just out of range. So these guys are going to get a few throws, it looks like. Looks like they're winding up. Are they going to get the throws? And it looks like he is using the Lamentation of Despair and is going to get a little bit of a shot. But you can see Durthu takes a few hundred HP damage. He is marked, but my opponent does run this Waystalker in. But his troops are exhausted. Mine are tired, actually. So I did have the Grumbling Guard for quite some time. So my guys aren't quite exhausted. So my opponent taking a bit of a, you know, penalty, and I believe it does hit their leadership, their armor, and some other variables. So all of his troops who are exhausted are going to, you know, be pretty prone to routing. So his infantry corps here, who kind of were an auxiliary for most of the battle, were just they're just tired at this point and winded. So he still does have that going for him. So High King Thorgrim and the boys are chasing that guy. I'm going to fast forward a little bit because, again, a little bit of attrition here and just posturing and things like that. So you can see he's out of missiles across the board, guys. No missiles here. His 2 Wild Riders are wavering, and you know he's definitely being, you know, pretty close to being threatened with army losses if he starts to lose a lot. Granted, you would think I would be, but you know the dwarf leadership is just incredible. High King Thorgrim is still eager after all of this nonsense. He is still eager. He's ready to go. And I decided to try and chase this Waystalker off the battlefield, but Waystalkers are pretty quick. Another Arrow of Kurnus coming in there, so very tough situation. So I decide here to make my last stand. So you can see High King Thorgrim and the 2 Runesmiths are here. They're ready to go. You know, but this is a tough situation. This is a big army, and Big Papa Durthu, even though he does do magic damage, so I will mitigate 25% of his damage. He still has armor piercing and over 400 weapon strength, and you can see his Lamentation of Despair making a little bit of contact with Thorgrim, but still not enough. So let's go ahead here, and it looks like the foliage is hidden. So you know, again, hopefully it won't be too much of a distraction here, but we're going to make our last stand here. So the dwarves collide with the wood elves here, and you know he's bringing in Big Papa Durthu here in a moment. He actually runs back for a second and then re-engages him, but you can see that all of my runes going off. You can just see elves flying out of the forest. This is seriously the Alamo. The Dawi here just standing and fighting, led by their runesmiths. I believe this is actually a group of Ulthar's raiders are in here because they're out of missile attacks. They got their axes out, and this is just so thematic and so cool. High King Thorgrim just crushing an entire group of the elves here, just absolutely crushing them. So this is just such a heated engagement. He pulls in his Lore of Life Wizard, just everything. So we're just throwing everything we got at each other, just one desperate last stand. You can see, despite only having 27 models, he's taking a lot of losses from High King Thorgrim. Unfortunately, it looks like my Rangers did break, which was really, really bad. So you can see Big Papa Durthu just marching in here, just pissed off. But he was being very conservative because Durthu, he does have physical resistance, but he does take pretty, fair amount of damage from magic. But Durthu does get in here, and now he's jumping on High King Thorgrim. He's using the Lamentation of Despair, and I just have High King Thorgrim, 2 Runesmiths left at this point, pretty much nothing else. But Durthu gets in here, and I decide to focus him with all of my units, and you can see he takes about 400 HP damage there. High King Thorgrim's going to keep hitting him. He takes another 600 or 700 damage there. So High King Thorgrim just smacking him down with these Runesmiths. Durthu, he's confident at the moment, but he's going to start losing leadership quickly. So he took, about 1,500 damage there just stepping into those 2 Runesmiths. So High King Thorgrim is definitely fighting for his people, is very, very pissed off. And now he's going to start smacking on this wizard here and hopefully doing a pretty good job. So this is just pretty insane. You can see the Lamentation of Despair coming in. High King Thorgrim making some good contact with that Lore of Life Wizard. And the Wild Riders come in now, but they're shaken. And, they're going to rout off pretty quickly. And the Runesmiths, there's still 2 of them, I believe. So let's go ahead and zoom out here and just get a bit of a look. So 1 Runesmith here, and I think there's 1 in here as well. So a little bit of a tough situation to kind of see everything that's going on. But pretty much just know, guys, that High King Thorgrim's just going ham. He's just fighting these guys off. The Runesmiths are just such beasts. You can see one of them kind of squatted in the tree line here, getting a nice double rune of Wrath and Rune off to just turn this fight around. You can see Big Papa Durthu coming in there, doing his thing. And, a lot of his troops are breaking now, starting to wave, just running off the battlefield. Durthu does come in. He's confident, but you guys saw how much burst damage he took from Thorgrim and the Runesmiths, and they're confident. They're confident. They have the stand your ground. Durthu's only tired, though, which is nice for him, but he takes another 500 damage there, another 400 from that melee attack, and he is just going to have to start running from the hills, because, again, if Durthu dies, he's going to be in bad shape. Although Durthu does come in, and in that window when he comes in, he does terrify one of my 2 remaining Runesmiths, which was really bad. I was very, very nervous about that, but you guys can see the balance of power. I only have 3 troops against his 96, but, again, they're in there. They're slapping these guys around. These Runesmiths are pissed about being harassed and kind of Kurnused from the forest all day. High King Thorgrim's in here, and he's just laying a smacking on these guys. Definitely doing the Dawi proud, and you can see he kills 2 Rudolphs there with just 1 of his attacks. These Wild Riders are wavering. Big Papa Durthu looks like he was shaken and pretty close to routing. And at this point, army losses are becoming a real thing. A lot of his troops are shattering. Durthu is wavering, and he does indeed shatter. So somehow, some way, the Dawi are able to pull out that game. Definitely one of the most epic, atrocious games I think I've had on my channel. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. You know, I was glad a lot of you guys got to see that live, but I definitely had to share that with you all. So, I mean, there's just so much going on in that game. It's kind of hard to give a peripheral overview at the end of the match, but still, you know, the Goblobber and the Cannons did a good job of putting down those Wild Riders, but at the end of the day, I just can't speak volumes about how gangster Thorgrim is and those two Runesmiths. So, but his harass and micro was pretty on point. He was very effective at harassing and taking advantage of the terrain. You know, definitely it was very stressful and kind of miserable to play against at the moment. So if any of you guys want to go back and watch that, I know it was on one of my live streams, but unfortunately I know they're about 4 hours long. So maybe I'll try and post in the comments or the description which live stream it was for those of you that want a live perspective. So very well played to my opponent. I look forward to seeing you again on the ladder, and I hope you guys enjoyed that Dawi game. Have an excellent night and take care.